Good afternoon.
Noon, and it is that time of the week. We are more than happy to join you this week as we do all every week. This is the Marketplace Show Reset, segment number one on health, wellness, and lifestyle, our health. And I'm joined by my colleagues who are in the studio. Linda Dorman, host of this segment, co-host of the segment, is Yvette Wood, and we have been rejoined. I'm really excited because this voice should be no stranger to you folks. She is, this person. We have traveled the Caribbean together, many conferences. We've worked together throughout the years. She is a stellar in terms of her reputation, nationally speaking. She made history when she became the first woman of color that chaired the
First,
House. The first, go ahead.
First female physician, period, in the House.
Okay, so forget the color part. First female physician in Congress that headed up the healthcare brain thrust committee, and so she, again, like I said, she's no stranger on the national scene. She's been in Congress for a long time, and she is, as far as the Virgin Islands community is concerned, you know her. She served as Commissioner of Health, and she also was a former gubernatorial candidate as well. But most important, she's my dear friend, and she's been a longtime contributor to this program. When we started first only on Wednesdays, and it was just money talk, but now we are now the Kalaloo Network. And Donna, it's really a delight to have you back. How are you doing?
Thanks you. And it's nice to be back. It's nice to meet everyone. And as my first time back, I'm going to do a lot of listening today. There it goes.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's going to be hard because you know you don't like sitting on the sideline. That's going to be interesting.
Okay. But I'm really excited about the show and our special guest today.
Yes. Our special guest is backstage. She is in the studio waiting to be pulled up on screen. But let's talk a little bit about the craziness, right?
Well,
the craziness.
Anthony, can I just plug, because having worked on Capitol Hill at the beginning of my career, I'm just personally thrilled that you are with us as a co-host and will be with us as a contributor each week. And I'm not sure, did we mention that you've also been a physician, an American physician as well?
Yeah, I'm a family physician, practiced in the Virgin Islands for about 21 years before going to Congress.
So we have the best of all of what we need in one amazing woman. So thank you for joining us. So I just had to say that. I had to get that off of my proverbial chest and just.
Yeah. Well, what did you do on the Hill?
I was a legislative aide for the Congressman Frank Horton from the New York delegation, 29th District. And it made a big impression on me at the beginning of my career, so much so that I realized that law and politics were probably not going to be my birthright, not my birthright, but health and wellness and really working for the common good through public interest was my jam.
So, jam! That was the jam. Look at that.
I have teenagers and they're giving me a new language, so I'm going to try it out on all of us.
One of the things that we don't talk about in terms of Linda's CV, she used to head up the BET Foundation in terms of its work, in terms of its philanthropic work in the community. Obviously, those of you that know BET, the entertainment company, the entertainment giant, but the foundation itself, the BET Foundation, our colleague Linda was
we worked with them. The Brain Trust worked with BET, especially on AIDS issues and the Wrap It Up campaign.
Wrap It Up campaign, that's right. And we focus in the foundation exclusively on women's health across the country because of the viewership, the 84 million households with a high skew majority of female viewers, a little known fact. So we thought if we could actually touch and bring health-centric messages, we could focus on obesity, cardiovascular diseases, metabolic syndrome, mental health, and along with the Wrap It Up program and our public pro-social programs to talk about HIV and AIDS and sexual health. So these are still relevant issues today. I mean, that
Absolutely.
was over 10
All of
years
it.
ago. And that thrust has not changed because those numbers have not decreased. We know that they have been increasing, and how timely and what a interesting, conversation segue in terms of topic because of that self-care. And having met Yvette Wood, our wonderful RN, I just one day I needed to have everybody tested coming into my house. So I recruited Yvette, and I said, Yvette, please bring your skill sets and help us understand this thing called COVID. And can you do the testing and get us moving? And then she was brilliant enough to go out, like many of us, to start our own company, Five Legacy
Group,
LLC. And so now we are just pleased to have her with us.
Fantastic. All right. So just before we bring up our special guest today to be part of the program, the question for the day, for the week, should I say, is when your heart skips a beat, what does that really mean? How to know if something is serious, like an AFib, and steps to take when it is. And so let me just kind of give you a quick blurb. Heart palpitation can be harmless if they are brief and infrequent, but it's important to have an erratic heart rhythm checked out by a doctor, because at an atrial fibrillation or AFib marked by rapid fluttering beats can lead to serious complications such as stroke and heart failure when the weakened heart can't pump enough blood to the rest of the body. And normally your heartbeat follows a steady rhythm as your heart contracts and relaxes. When you have an AFib, the upper chamber of your heart beat rapidly and irregularly, and it's sending blood to the lower chamber less efficiently, said Robert Bonow, MD, a professor of cardiology at Northwestern University at Feinberg School of Medicine in Chicago. So, ladies, I'm going to stop right there. So if you want an opportunity to respond to that, the question of the day, when your heart skip a beat, what does that mean? I know none of us are cardiologists on the show, but if you care to, take a stab at it, no pun intended. If you would take a crack at it, that's fine. But let's bring up our guest on the program today. Who do we have on the program, ladies?
We have Dr. Shannon Harrington. I am lovingly in my church. They always call me Dr. Wood whenever something's wrong or somebody has a medical question. So I decided to make that fantasy a reality and start my hunt to go back to school to get my doctorate's degree. In doing so, I fell upon a wonderful dissertation written about the disparities in breast cancer patients. And that was written by no other than our guest, Dr. Shannon Harrington. Wow. I discovered she was much more than that. So much more. When I reached out to her about today, she's like, I have 6 interviews. And I'm like, I just want one. I just want one. And I am just so excited and over the top ecstatic that she's here. Wouldn't you say so, Linda?
I would say absolutely, because one of the things that we know about Dr. Harrington is that not only is she a Harvard-trained PhD, she is an RN and has a whole bunch of letter acronyms behind her name that only allows us to know that she is phenom and fabulous, but has her own business that we are excited to, and I don't want to get the name incorrectly because it's kind of a cute name, and I'm going to look down and it says Try Again Health and Fitness. And when I read that, I thought, oh, that's me. I'm trying again on my health and my fitness. So it was so applicable, and we're so pleased to have you because you've accomplished so much. You have covered so much ground, and how amazing that you would inspire now PhD work candidate. We're so proud of you, Yvette Wood, going forward. I just applaud that. So welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. I am so excited about being here, and I look forward to the dialogue. And Dr. Wood to be, I apologize in advance for my dissertation because you know how you write something. I worked on that forever, and then I still go back and see typos. I'm like, how is that possible? That's why your dissertation is not your life's work. It's the beginning of your life's work, and we're in school to learn, right? I had to give myself grace. So give me grace as you read through that and notice some of the typos that I noticed in all 249 pages.
Oh, wow.
It's a long dissertation.
But in addition to, the academic credentials, I think her life and how she's dealt with some of the adversities and overcome them is also very inspiring to all of us.
Okay, so this non-health entity person is going to go backstage and continue producing the show, allowing you beautiful ladies to continue your dialogue on a very important subject. Thank you so much, Dr. Shannon Harrington, being part of the program. Thank you.
And you know what? I think that's a great place for us to start, is with your trials and tribulations, because it humanizes the subjects that we need to talk about, health and wellness, to the listener and to the viewing audience that sometimes feel that we must have it all together because they can see us and they can hear us. But we have flesh and we have bone and we have experiences that take us through trials and tribulations. Can you touch upon some of those to give us an insight into you?
Oh boy. Yes, they are documented. I will do a plug in my book. So this is called Try Again, but my book is called Try Again. This is a 21-day transformation devotional. And then I wrote a book called From CNA to PhD, How to Use the Nursing Process to Grow Personally and Professionally. Trials and tribulations. This should be a very familiar question to me because I just answered it. I did a Fox, CBS, NBC interview, and I had to sum it up. And there have been many. From the earliest one that I can remember would be being raped at 5 by a family member, being raped at 17 while I was in school as a freshman, working on my BSc, going through different things like divorce and losing my father, which is the reason why I'm so passionate about my business and Try Again, TRY, that very funny name stands for Transform and Renew Yourself. And it's based off of one of my favorite scriptures, Romans 12:1-2, about being transformed by the renewing of your mind. So I got serious about my life and my health when my father died. He passed away 12 hours before I got my PhD. So within a 24-hour period, I had the greatest academic and professional celebration of my life, and also the most painful experience that I could have experienced. So going through things like that, I remember going through a 11-month period where I lost my grandmother, my grandfather, and my dad, all within that same 11 months. And within then, I had 3 blood clots. I was diagnosed with factor V Leiden. So Dr. Christensen, I had factor V Leiden, and I didn't know that until I was taking birth control, and I had undiagnosed factor V Leiden, which is a blood clotting disorder, and I got 3 blood clots as I was training for a marathon. I was going to run that beautiful 26.2 miles in honor of the 2 groups of 26 patients. So this will make sense to you. Dr. Wood and Dr. Christensen. I had 26 patients and 2 groups that participated in that study that you're reading about, Dr. Wood, my disparities in breast cancer. So I had 2 groups of 26 patients, and I was training for a marathon, and I was ignoring all the signs and symptoms of the pain. So I knew that when I was running, I couldn't feel my legs. I knew that the pain was a little bit more intense than just runner's pain, because my friends would say, Dr. Harrington, you run 35, 40 miles a week and you act like that's normal. Your legs are supposed to hurt. But I was ignoring all of those nursing signs. I didn't have the swelling, but I had the pain and I had the numbness and tingling, and I couldn't feel my feet when I was running my 35 miles, but I kept running, right? So I got diagnosed on 9/11/2012 with 3 blood clots in my legs. And I was grateful for the physician that I had, because he said it was a life lesson for me, as well as it was a life lesson for me, and it was a health lesson for me, because he said, had I let you continue to keep running, you would have died at the finish line. You would have finished, but you would have died at the finish line. All of my texts came back negative except for, he said, I think that he said, my gut says don't send you home. He was like, if I send you home, I'm not going to feel good about it. He said, all your tests are coming back negative. He said, let me do one more test. And that last test before he diagnosed me was a D-dimer. And that was elevated. So because that was elevated, there was blood clot somewhere. So he did ultrasounds, and I had 3 in my right leg, 2 behind my knee and 1 at my ankle. And I was grateful in that moment because I learned that was a pivotal lesson for me when it comes to like trials and tribulations, when God has to slow you down from running. So I had to stop running from all of the things that I was going through in my life, learn how to stop and take care of myself. That's why I'm so passionate about self-care, because I kind of lived it. But all of those different things and have been very instrumental in my life and are the catalyst for me being so passionate about self-care.
Wow. I think all 3 of us are like,
It's a lot.
You know, it's always a great lesson that we are supposed to learn from other people's trials and tribulations, which is why God gives those to us. I do believe, and I think the name of your company, TRY, is phenomenal. That's memorable. You said some things that I think we want to make sure that our listeners and our viewers hear, and that's the D-dimer test.
Yes.
And the name of the disease, because I think that individuals might have the same issues. They have the cramp, maybe they feel like they've exercised, and that lactic acid is natural. It may not necessarily be, particularly at a certain age or weight or other health issues like high blood pressure, I would imagine. And we want to give them some tools to get right off of this program and start researching and call, because they heard from Dr. Harrington and everyone else.
Yes. So the D-dimer was a blood test that once it's shown that it's elevated, you can add a lot more physician level context to it, Dr. Christensen, than I can.
I doubt it. Go ahead.
The D-dimer, once it's shown that it's elevated, it means that you have a clot somewhere. And because all of the tests prior to that were negative, he was just like, oh, I feel like you have some somewhere, but I don't know. And it opened the door to him going and doing more tests. And the next test he did was he looked at the leg that was in pain the most, and we ended up doing the ultrasound. And the ultrasound showed the 3 blood clots. But I had x-rays and I had other blood tests that were all negative. But the D-dimer, because it was elevated, told him that I had a clot somewhere. So all of that medical stuff behind the D-dimer is not in my anointing to explain.
Wow. And what was the name of the disease? You had mentioned a very specific name.
Factor V Leiden. And it means that I'm hypercoagulable. So I take a baby aspirin every day, and I stay very hydrated, stay moving. But if I'm flying, I have to have on the old lady compression socks. I got pink. I'm cute when I'm flying, but if I'm going to be in a car for a long period of time, or if I'm going to be flying, then I have to have on compression stockings, and I need to make sure that I'm hydrated. I need to make sure that I take the aspirin to make sure that I keep that hypercoagulability at bay.
Outstanding. Well, that's a show wrap right there. My goodness gracious, because I think a lot of
good information.
That is excellent information. And then you started segueing and talking about self-care. And so that's a conversation I've had specifically with Yvette many times. And just recently, she said to me over a conversation, just, can you pray on that? She knows, but can you pray on that? And, that's part of the self-care, is recentering yourself and getting a good perspective on things so you can have that clear mind while you're assessing what your health requirements are. Can you speak a little bit on that part of your business, how you help your clients enter into that self-care realm?
Absolutely. Self-care starts with self-awareness. And my clients was, I ain't got time for that. And we think self-care, I used to think self-care was cute. See, I had my little Massage Envy monthly thing, and I work out and whatever. I used to think it was hanging out with your girlfriends, having wine, W-I-N-E and W-H-I-N-E night, and getting massages, getting mani-pedis and all that little cute stuff. But that's not what self-care is. Self-care is a whole lot deeper than that. And with my clients, I make them aware of the fact that they need it. It's not just that cute stuff, but it's not, self-care is not selfish. So a lot of my clients are African American women who have that, I call it Superwoman syndrome. And I created an ebook that's available on my website, drfitnurse.com, and it's called Self-Care Secrets for the Superwoman. Because we spend so much time taking care of and being there for everyone else. And even, I always say we don't even put ourselves on our lists, if we even make our list. Sometimes we're at the bottom of our list. But I learned self-care in a season where I didn't have a choice. It wasn't just the cute part of self-care. It was me taking care of my mental health, me making sure that I had time to work out, have that spiritual connection. And I developed, it's 4 things that I've been doing every day since 2017. And I learned the importance of self-care in 2017. And that's why I preach it so hard. It's 4 things that I do every single solitary day. And that's War Room. If you've seen the movie, you know what that is. But it's that devotional, quiet time, intentional prayer time, War Room, workout, worship, work. And that's every day. The work part kind of takes shape and form in different ways. It's not always crazy, intense working, doing a lot of media interviews or coaching a lot of different people. But it's something that's personal to me because I try to attract, and I do my affirmations where I want something to happen great to me and something to happen great through me. That can be just an intentional smile or a random act of kindness, but to me that's work because it's attaching who I am and what I'm supposed to do with my purpose. So that self-care part, and it's I don't know if this is a time to read that, but it's on my heart to do that, and it sums up exactly what I just said. I found a poem by Brianna Wiest, and I gotta find the screenshot. But she sums up what self-care is in the most realist, raw way, and I had never thought about it like that. And if I can read it now, or if I read it later, read it now.
No, read it now.
But she says self-care is often a very unbeautiful thing. It is making a spreadsheet of your debt, enforcing a morning routine, cooking yourself healthy meals, and no longer just running from your problems and calling the distraction a solution. It is sweating through a workout or confronting a toxic friend, getting a second job to save money, or figuring out a way to accept yourself so that you're not constantly exhausted from trying to be everything all of the time. True self-care is not salt baths and chocolate cake. It is making the choice to build a life you don't need an escape from. And that sometimes means doing the ugliest thing that you have to do. And that's what I teach my clients. We got to do the work. It's not the cute stuff. It's the stuff that is self-preservation, is that essential component of life that we need to slow us down and to make sure that we're healthy and happy and whole throughout life.
If you see me look down, it's right. Do you have her name?
Yes, and I'm probably destroying her last name. Brianna, Brianna, and the last name is Wiest or Wiest, Wiest.
Thank you.
And that part about, most people wouldn't think about taking care of some of the hard stuff that needs to be cleaned up in your life as part of self-care. But that's very important because the stress that it brings, you're not even necessarily conscious of it, but you need to get rid of some of the stress that knowing that this is not quite where it needs to be. You need to get rid of that if you're going to really be dealing with being your best, healthier, peaceful self.
Absolutely.
Dr. Harrington, you touched on something for me. I think Linda's aware, but I have just sent my book off to the editors. And interesting enough, our lives parallel because I too was molested at 5 years old.
Oh, God.
I noticed when I was writing, all this anxiety came to the forefront. I mean, Anthony was talking about our heart skipping a beat. I don't know if I was having premature ventricular, but I was like flipping out because all these emotions were coming to the forefront. Mm-hmm. So in your self-care, what are some tips for dealing with emotional stress and anxiety? Because I found myself literally hyperventilating for a while because I had to relive that moment.
Mhm.
And, as a single mom and traveling and working, all the things, like you said, we do day to day, we neglect ourselves so much.
Mhm.
And I really want our viewers to know what can they do to prepare themselves mentally to tackle self-care. Because for me, self-care is healthcare.
Mhm.
Yes.
But how do we get
Very
that
important part.
messaging across?
Ooh, that's
Unpack that.
yeah, I gotta unpack it. So I'll start here. So first, I'm sorry that we had to share that same seed of experience. And I didn't realize how much that negative event impacted me, and I didn't start to really address that and have self-care around that until I was 32. So I can imagine the weight of my life. That's why I had negative self-esteem. That's why I had negative self-worth. That's why I acted the way I did in relationships. That's why I showed up in certain ways. That's why it did do something great for me because I didn't have the self-esteem, or I didn't feel beautiful and all those things that if nobody was going to tell me I was beautiful, they weren't going to take me and smart away from me. So that's how I got from the hood to Harvard, as I say, because I found something that was a positive way to channel that negative energy. So I'm proud of you for surviving that and for owning that. And I think that when it comes to self-care, what you said about the book, that's perfectly normal, because I was about to go lose my mind with some of the stuff that I wrote in these books. I was like, oh my God, I can't write that. I wrote it and I deleted it. I wrote it, I deleted it. I sent it to my friends. He was like, oh, that's really good. I was like, did you really read it? Like, do you know how vulnerable and transparent I'm being? I'm being naked in these books, telling my story. And one of my spiritual friends, don't you just love them? Baby, it's not your story to tell.
Oh,
Yes,
wow.
it is.
He said there would be no journey from CNA to PhD without a GOD. So don't forget whose story it is. And every time I share that beautiful, ugly, transparent, vulnerable side of me, I remember something that one of my good friends said. She said, transparency heals the broken. I'm not the only person that experienced that. And one of my most views, I think the only video that I have that has like 15,000 views is me talking about my rape. And I chose to do that because I was talking about the importance of counseling. I was just running my mouth on live one day. And the next day, this lady went into my DM, and 200 people were in my DM. That was the most DM that ever been. But one of them was a story that just got me to be that transparent and open about my journey, because it was this lady. She said, I have 2 nieces who watched her live on Facebook. And I didn't realize the babies was watching me. It was for adults. I thought I was just talking to the ladies. But it was a little girl. One was 9, one was 12. They went to their aunt and they said, Auntie, I think I need to go, because I was joking. I said, lay on somebody's couch. I was trying to talk about, I said, don't think of therapy as therapy. Think of it as a spiritual workout, and everybody need to lay on somebody's couch. And I was going through a season where I was on somebody's couch. I needed to be on somebody's couch, and I wanted to normalize being on somebody's couch. And these little girls said, they told their aunt, I think I need to lay on somebody's couch, like Dr. Shannon. And she was like, why? She was like, because such and such touched me inappropriately. Or they said, they used the word rape. So if these little girls hadn't seen me, and if I hadn't been transparent, I wasn't talking to them. I didn't think I was. But my transparency helped to get them on the journey of healing. So the story that you write, and whatever it is in that book that I can't wait to get my hands on, so I need to be on the pre-order list. But whatever it is that you share, know that your pain, there was purpose in that pain. And that pain is going to deliver and help somebody else along that journey, because you're not the only person that had that experience. And I think one of the things that we need to normalize, and how we get to that part about self-care, is to normalize it. It's okay. And I'm hopeful that the Simone Biles, and I can't think of the other girl's name, who came out about the importance of mental health, is saying that it's okay to not be okay. Yes. It's okay to not be okay. And if we can become more aware of our own feelings and more comfortable sharing when we're not good, because social media wants you to live this highlight real life that everything's okay. I'm just doing this and I'm just living life and just being fabulous and just looking good and doing this and taking names. And that's not every day. And I think that part of the self-care journey and dealing with that anxiety is sitting in it. I'm having my Yana Van Zant moment. Just sit in it. Sit in it, experience it, and stop trying to mask it. Stop trying to beat the face. Stop trying to put matte makeup over it. Stop trying to silence it. It needs to be let out, and it needs to be okay that you're not okay.
And, you know, when we're going to take a break and give our opportunity for a station break. When we come back, let's talk about that thing called courage, because I think every time you're saying this, I'm hearing the word courage over and over and over again, and how we get to that stage of embodying courage. So we're going to take a break and then we'll be right back. We are so pleased to have Dr. Shannon Harrington, and I am thrilled of everything that you've said and you have shared thus far. It's been a chock full. So the next group, make sure you have your pen and paper ready. So we'll be right back.
Now is the historical moment, the time, not only to fight severe virus, but to shape the system.
We have a unique but rapidly shrinking window of opportunity to learn lessons and reset ourselves on a more sustainable path. It is an opportunity we have never had before and may never have again. So we must use all the levers we have at our disposal, knowing that each and every one of us has a vital role to play.
Now is the time to think what history would say about this crisis. And now is the time for all of us to define our own role. What is it that would make it so that history would look at this crisis as the great opportunity for reset?
The Great Reset is a welcome recognition that this human tragedy must be a wake-up call. It is imperative that we reimagine, rebuild, redesign, reinvigorate, and rebalance our world. Rebalancing investment, harnessing science and technology, and advancing the transition to net zero emissions, all elements of the Great Reset, are fundamental to building the future we need.
The world's problems fit on three sides of a triangle. It's one versus many, man versus nature, and the unfortunate foundation is long-term versus short-term.
We had already income inequality that was fueling income, race, gender inequality. We have a climate emergency, which we can't walk away from. There's no doubt that the very survival of the human race requires us to act.
Any recovery stimulus should have green conditions attached to it. Energy prices should reflect real costs.
You need private sector capital, private sector ingenuity, private sector technology, and private sector capabilities to come to the party. You need enormous trust between the private sector and the public sector for this to actually work.
We have to change our economy dramatically in the next 20 or 30 years, and the next 10 years is absolutely decisive.
The recovery has to be greener than any of the previous recoveries. And in order to do that, we need to ensure that the stimulus package, including fiscal and monetary, are much greener than they were before. So we cannot waste this opportunity to ensure that the very precious money that's raised from the next generation is spent on green and low carbon.
We will now start a quite high number of task forces to look at all the different issues, and we will present all those ideas to the people assembled in Davos. But at the same time, we will make Davos very different, very open, to ensure that we do not fall back to old recipes, but that we really look at forward-oriented solutions.
welcome back. And we have been having a terrific conversation around self-care and disease prevention, and really starting with the heartfelt stories that Dr. Sharon Harrington has shared with us, and our co-host Yvette Wood, and our new co-host, and we're very excited to have the Honorable Donna Christensen, so the U.S. Virgin Islands. So let's pick back up this amazing conversation. We stopped on self-care, but this word, as I mentioned, courage, to be able to face and own up to the pain that we're feeling, to get the diagnosis, the heartfelt issues that are tugging at our heart and making us non-productive because we are playing that movie over and over and over again, so that we're not laying on the couch. And I think the denial that goes with trauma, of course, and complex health issues, mental health issues, that keep us from living in our most authentic self. You've walked through so many of those things. Where did you get the courage from?
The only thing that I can trace all that back to is my faith, and how I was brought up. I think my mom and my dad did a good job, but my faith has given me that. And I think about something that on the last day before I moved from Virginia to cold Massachusetts to do my postdoctoral fellowship, my pastor talked about faith, and he talked about Peter walking on the water. And he said a quote that I quote to him almost every time I see him, but it talks about faith. And he said, you have to have faith that takes a chance, faith that steps out on nothing, believing that something will be there when you get there. But even if nothing is there when you get there, you believe that you can walk on nothing as long as you're standing on God. And
Wow.
I think that that faith has given me that courage, and that courage doesn't mean that you do things without fear. Is that you do things with fear within, but you know that in the end that everything is going to be okay.
Outstanding.
Wow.
Yeah. Did you have a question, Yvette or Donna? Because I have so many in the back of my head that I could just have a two-way conversation. We've got
I don't
women, and I don't want to have that. Yeah, right.
I was just going to ask about the faith part, because so many times, you know, if I did not have faith and trust in God, I would not be able to get through a difficult situation. So I'm glad that you went there with that, Dr. Harrington, but that would have been one of my questions.
Yes, and I honestly think that faith for some is whatever that spirituality, that higher being. You know, mine is Jesus, and others may be others. I have a sister-in-law who is Muslim. And so, you know, faith took her through the process of breast cancer and believing that all would be well. And we prayed right with her in our place of prayer. So I think what I'm hearing is that courage has to be within, and you have to dig it out, and as hard as it may be. And I love the point that really spoke to the fact that there are some edges to that. It can be a messy work, but it's a work that's worth doing. You know, Yvette and I were talking about diseases and, you know, some of the things that we can prevent. Obviously, we know that we can protect ourselves with COVID, which is, where are we now? Have we made it to Omega yet? Have we gone down the alphabet?
Hopefully it's the end, Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end of COVID.
I'll be glad when we get to Omega.
That was my heart. I was trying to get there, and all of you amazing clinicians. And I hope that you were going to say, yes, Linda, you didn't hear that on CNN or the news or Bloomberg Report.
Not yet.
No, you didn't hear that yet.
That line. But Linda, before we get there, I have a question. We've often had guests that talked about the disparities in healthcare.
Yes.
And, you know, Dr. Harrington, you've talked about self-care, but there's a huge disparity in self-care among people of color, because most women of color who are single mothers, they're working, sometimes 2 jobs, trying to take care of the children. And when they get home, you know, they have the stress of trying to run a household, and many times the economic picture is not bright. So they're trying to figure out how they're going to feed their children, how they're going to pay their bills. They're riding the bus to and from work or Ubering, and they just don't feel like they're even worth taking care of themselves. So what would you say to one of our viewers who may find themselves in that situation, that I'm always running, I don't have enough to make ends meet? How do I possibly begin to take care of myself when I have to take care of my children first, or I need to take care of my parents first? What tips can you give that woman or that single father that might be listening?
Good question.
Before I give some advice, that I don't sit in that seat, so I'm not in that room with them, but I know what will happen if they don't. For those people that sit in that seat, I have a question. Not a whole bunch of tips, but I have a question. If you don't take care of yourself and your health and your body, where are you going to live? And a lot of times, just thinking about that, you said something, self-care, and I did a whole 7-week series on self-care, self-care. And I got a lot of feedback about that, because people are like, I didn't think about it like that. And sometimes we think about self-care as that Brianna Weiss quote about being salt baths and chocolate cake. But sometimes self-care is just breathing, being self-aware and knowing, having that emotional intelligence thermometer of knowing when you're okay and when you're not okay. You don't have to start with working out crazy like Dr. Shannon. You don't have to start doing a whole lot of things that take a whole lot of time. But if you just look in the mirror and take time to really understand your emotional vital signs, as I like to call them, your emotional vital signs and your temperature, and just take time to think, okay, you're taking the time to take care of your kids, and you have to do that. I cannot tell you how to plug it in, but the people who I coach, they find it in the nooks and crannies. And sometimes we're so busy being busy that we really do have that time. Like one of my clients, she has kids and everything. So she's just glad to get them out of the house. You want to play football, soccer, any sport with a ball. You want to do this, you going to school, we doing it all. So, okay, when does that make time for you? So she sent me a picture yesterday. She was getting in her little workout that I created while her kids were at softball, whatever ball that they throwing right now. They were there while she was there supporting them. She was getting her workout in. She had on her workout clothes and she figured it out. That was the only point in time in her day that she was going to be able to do that. Tomorrow, oh, I got this going, I got that. If I want to sleep, eat, and take care of my kids, I'm just going to park my car a little bit further away and just walk, get some extra steps. So I'm not going to be able to work out, but I'm going to focus on my steps and my stand goals. So I got my little Apple Watch. Okay, you're going to be monitoring me. So I'm going to do that. So sometimes it's not the big things that we do for self-care. Sometimes it's just watching the sunset, taking time to breathe. As a nurse, going to pee. That's self-care, right? So I've worked 12, 13, 14 hours and not peed before and not eaten before because I was taking care of all my patients lived, but my bladder was angry with me. But sometimes self-care is just being self-aware. You have to start with where you are before you can come up with the whole self-care tips and whatever, because everything doesn't work for everyone. You need to know what you need. Sometimes it's starting with the spiritual. You don't have time to sit down and read a devotional because you commute in your car. You got to take the kids here, Mobile University, Audible, YouTube, playing that in your car. And that's your self-care of the day, listening to Dr. Eric Thomas, listening to Joel Osteen, T.D. Jakes, whoever. But sometimes it's, as Dr. Christensen said about faith comes by hearing. So even if the only thing you do is listen to something positive, that's one thing in the right direction. And it didn't take you a whole lot of extra time to do it. You were able to multitask and listen to Joel Osteen while you were driving down the street, driving somewhere that you could get with your eyes closed because you do it every day. So it doesn't have to be hard. It just has to be what works for you. But you have to know what you need in order to create that.
So this is fantastic. Walk us through, therefore, you'd mentioned that you had prepared a plan for one of your clients that included exercising, and you were obviously her accountability partner because you were tapping into her Apple Watch. Now that I know that I have an Apple Watch. so someone can tap into mine. So that's a good. There we go. I love it. I love it. We didn't have to go very far, so I have an Apple Watch. Can you tell us? Let's talk about your business, how you work with your clients. Give us some resources, how we can reach you, how we can participate in your virtual classes and coursework, how we can just plug the listeners and viewers into you, how we can get closer to you in your endeavor.
Awesome. Well, my alter ego is Dr. Fit Nurse. So I'm Dr. Fit Nurse on Facebook, on Instagram, and my website is drfitnurse.com. Okay. So that's the hub for everything. I'm on LinkedIn, but it's my real name, Dr. Shannon Tucker Harrington. But you can get my books. You can sign up for my online courses. You can sign up for coaching and for all of that there. And I'm talking to nurses and doctors now. You know that there's no one-stop shopping when it comes to treatment plans. So when I work with my clients, it is a very individualized experience. Some of the things I say may be the same from conversation to conversation. However, the needs are always different. So just like I walk through in my book, Nursing Process, you got to start with an assessment. So we assess, and then I kind of diagnose you. We develop our outcomes. We make a plan. We implement. We evaluate, rinse, and repeat. So I work with everyone. I meet them where they are. Some people get afraid and don't want to work with me because they see my videos on Instagram, but that's me. I've been working out for 6, 7, 8, 9 years, so I can do those things. I wouldn't make you do the workouts that I did a couple of days ago. I meet you where you are. So everybody's experience is personalized, and I really take it seriously when people choose me. And we choose each other as a partnership because I really want to help you to accomplish your goals. Not the ones that I want for you, but the ones that you want to accomplish, and helping you to create a plan that really works and fits in the nooks and crannies of your life sometimes to help you to achieve those goals.
What is the age range of your clients? You have young and old, middle age?
Maybe from 28 to, I think my mom is my oldest client, 68, 28 to 68. But the average is 40 to 55. I have more 40 to 55, but I have a couple of outliers in their 60s. My mom in the Sexist Saints Club. So my mom in the 60s, and I have a couple in the 20s. But most of them I'm 40. So about that 40 to 56 age range.
Fantastic. You've accomplished a lot, young lady. Based on my age, I can say that. But tell us, what was your inspiration for starting the business? I know that you talked about, because you can deliver the services through your clinical practice as an RN, but to venture out as an entrepreneur and taking it to level up, I guess, in that regard. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
That's about courage too. Taking that.
We all shake our heads. Yes, courage. It takes a lot of courage to be an entrepreneur.
Divine disruption. I've always had side hustles of stuff like great tax write-offs. You get to a certain tax bracket in corporate, and then it's just like, okay, you need some deductions. And I made purposeful deductions with my business, but I totally lost my train of thought.
Divine disruption. As a matter of fact, I was writing that in our notes because that was a bam.
My business. I was like, what was I getting ready to say? But yeah, so I kind of played with my business until God kind of pushed me into it full time. Divine disruption. I was laid off on my mother's birthday on June the 30th, and I knew that was very purposeful and intentional. But I got serious about my business and got an LLC and all that other type of stuff. I got serious about living and about self-care when my father died. That hit me and hurt me like nothing else I've ever experienced on this side of God. And I really realized my dad died from preventable diseases. He had high cholesterol. So I'm the nurse. I'm the baby girl. And my dad had high cholesterol, hypertension, diabetes, the cocktail, right? And he was active. He was this. He didn't have the best diet, but daddy died from a stroke. And that reality that I went to work and I got all cute in my little Grey's Anatomy scrubs every day and saved lives. And I couldn't save the person that gave me life. So that hit a little bit different. that's what got me serious about my business. And the divine disruption of being laid off has pushed it into full time, but that has been the greatest disruption divine disruption. It has been the greatest thing that I have had to experience. It takes courage to walk it out. Now, every day I'm not always, let's go. Some days I'm like, oh my God. But faith that takes a chance.
I love that. Faith that takes a chance. There was nothing left unsaid, really, because we talked about, the ability to actually look at that divine disruption. There's a lot of people who experienced that in late 2019, a good portion, if not all, of 2020, and many are still in that divine disruption in 2021, which should be the catapult to that courage. Somehow we have to look past it because COVID is here. It has wreaked havoc in our communities, our families, our nation, our world, but yet we know that there are some positive outcomes that we need to take a look at and incorporate and look at the glass half full. I'm gonna just punt it over to Yvette, because Yvette, you look like you have a lot of questions. I'm feeling it. I don't know why today I'm not putting you on the spot, my friend, but because I have a million and I do, but I don't want to hog the conversation anymore. This is my jam.
Go another hour.
I can come back.
Yes, we're definitely going to have you come back, and talk about some of these disparities because this dissertation, even with the typos, it's just amazing. And there's disparities in so many different areas of healthcare. I know last week we had someone that was talking about the disparities in medical devices. And that's something I can tell you as a healthcare professional, I just didn't think a lot about. But you've covered so much for us, Dr. Harrington. And we talked about overcoming complex trauma. And you've had many and the courage to step out and become an entrepreneur and working with people to take care of themselves so their lives won't be cut short. The word of God says that, he desires that we would have long lives, that we will fulfill every day, minute, hour, and second on this earth that God has ordained for us to fulfill. And you're allowing us to do that. You're assisting us with your self-care business. And so I applaud you for that, woman of God. Thank you. Because it is needed in our communities with people of color. We just don't think about ourselves. Unfortunately, I think some of us were kind of raised that way because, and Dr. Christensen, you may be able to speak to that. I can say from my generation before me, my mother and father, they thought that you got a job and you had to stay on it till you died. You don't leave jobs, you don't switch jobs, you don't jump off the cliff because you don't soar, you hit the ground. And that's just something I never really was never in my DNA. My DNA was, I'm going for it. I'm jumping off this cliff and whatever catches me may, but I have to take a chance because I'm determined to go to the next level. And I just, want to say thank you so very much. And Dr. Christensen, by no means do I want to rob you of any heart-burning question in our last 2 minutes here.
It's not a question, but I've been thinking a lot about Black resiliency, and it speaks to also how we are always taking care of everybody else as well. But we face a lot of major and minor assaults just through the systemic racism, structural racism, and all of that. And we've been, proud of being resilient, but it has taken a toll.
Yes.
I don't know if you run into that in your counseling, and how we should really respond to it instead of being so resilient and just taking it and turning the other cheek and moving on. And it's something that I'm really studying a bit and really trying to take a look at because it has affected our health and our longevity or lack of it. And it's just something that I don't know if you run into that in your counseling as well.
I do, and there's a lot of literature that I need to dive into about that, and there's a lot of funding that's going in that direction for that very reason that you so eloquently spoke of. So that is something, that's the reason why I end up working with them. They're so dang resilient. They're super women.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's okay not to wear that, take your cape off sometimes.
It's like dealing with really we talked about facing whatever the obstacle is, really
yes,
looking it straight in the face and dealing with it. And I think that is the reaction that we really need to develop instead of being so resilient all of the time.
Absolutely.
I think that's a great topic to add into our discussion, Dr. Christensen, because that seems to be the definition of women of color, that resiliency, that when you said you're just tired, I think that we should own that and really examine it. And I appreciate you leaving us with that word. And Yvette, I know you're going to close us out. And here's our wonderful Anthony. This has been terrific.
Ladies,
really wonderful.
That was a powerful exchange of just wonderful information. The personalization, the testimony was just absolutely incredible. It's one thing to share information and it's just general information, but when you connect on a very personal level, it does something for someone that is watching this on television, listening to it on radio, social media, wherever it is, because we're broadcasting on several platforms. But it is Dr. Shannon Harrington. You were just an incredible source of inspiration, and this is what our health is about. It's about inspiring others to not only hear and to believe in the information that we have, and so when people watch this program, you listen to it on the radio. The next step, folks, based on who you see and what you hear, you can now take the next step. And the next step is our chain of efficacy. And our chain of efficacy is called iTelehealth. And so you're able to go to that website and get in touch with us. And we're able to follow up with you on any questions you have or anything you've heard, concerns, whatever. We're able to help walk you through that chain of efficacy from education to, helping you, holding your hands through the process. And you simply go to www.itelehealth.us. That's www.itelehealth.us. And you click on contact us and you schedule an appointment. And any person that you hear or see on this program that you would like to talk to, we're able to schedule an appointment so you can have a conversation at your convenience and at their convenience as well. Ladies, anything else before we close out? Anything else?
We just want to make sure that Dr. Harrington has an opportunity to broadcast her website to this large viewing and radio audience.
And remind everyone what TRI to try is.
And TRI?
TRY stands for Transform and Renew Yourself, and it's based off of Romans 12:1-2. And my website, being transformed by the renewing of your mind. And my website is www.drfitnurse.com. So Dr. Fit, F-I-T, nurse, N-U-R-S-E. www.drfitnurse.com.
Outstanding.
All right, folks.
Great.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harrington. Looking forward to your appearance. I know you do a lot of major networks, Fox, CBS. You do all the major networks. Thank you for gracing us with your presence on the program, and we look forward to having you back in the program.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.